This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com and GatheringMagic.com, your place to explore the game.
Hi, I'm Aaron, aka Uncle Landdrops from the General Zone and now Commander Cast, and today on CMDR Decks, we're looking at my favorite wizard that counts as a wizard, Barrin, Master Wizard. So, Barrin Master Wizard is a 1/1 for 1 and double blue. He counts as a wizard, which is one of his rules text, and I find that very fun in terms of magic history and card templating, etc. But you pay 2, you sacrifice a permanent, and you get to unsummon a creature. And this is what we play Barrin for. The story behind how I came across building Barrin as a commander is a little bit interesting. I was building a set of 10 monocolored decks, 1 old bordered creature commander, 1 new bordered creature, and I was having a lot of trouble. Barrin, the mono blue old border, was my last deck to build in the cycle, and I went through a lot of different ones before I settled on Barrin. What I ultimately found was that Barrin acts a lot like an enchantment on the battlefield, and paying 2 to sacrifice a permanent caters to a lot of different sensibilities. We can play a lot of different permanents in blue. Additionally, I wanted to play a no counterspell deck, so this catered into it nicely by forcing me to play permanents. I had to cut a lot of counterspells and control-y style cards that way out of the deck, but I was also able to gain a control strategy against a lot of creature-based decks. So that was a really cool little thing, and not only does the ability work with our opponent's stuff in terms of interacting with our opponents, but also helps us to generate incremental card advantage, to recur certain creatures like Solemn Simulacrum if we want over and over again. And it's just been a really cool experience in terms of understanding Commander, scaling it to games, etc. It's not necessarily the best deck in terms of the cards that I've chosen for it. I could break the game even more if I wanted to, but again, that's really not in the spirit of this deck. This deck wants to play a lot of fun, compelling cards that wouldn't probably normally you would see in a deck be an all-star, and this deck really does make them very powerful and really great all-stars. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. There are 40 lands in the deck. 25 of them are islands. They're all old border, various arts, some from masks, etc. I really like the idea of having old border commander, older, artwork. So we've got Evolving Wilds, we've got Myriad Landscape, Terramorphic Expanse, did some Cycle, Power, Lonely Sandbar, Remote Isle, Blasted Landscape. We've got Springjack Pasture. This is a really cool card with Barrin's ability. Again, this allows us to put a goat out on the field and then use it as fodder to Barrin to activate his ability. Arcane Lighthouse is a really nice little card. I actually played a game against Narset recently where I really needed to draw this card, and I was able to get into it and effectively end the game. Halimar Depths, really nice little powerful blue card, blue land. Seed of the Synod. I play in a pretty extensive Trinket Mage package. It's one of my favorite cards ever. And one of the cool things about this card is that we can basically turn Trinket Mage into a Borderland Ranger as a result of the artifact lands. Riptide Lab. Play a little bit of wizard power. Again, Barrin is a master wizard and counts as a wizard, so it's kind of a no-brainer in terms of protecting him that I would want to play something like this. It actually hasn't been as necessary, I would say, in this deck because Barrin does bounce himself. But it is nice if somebody decides that they, want to destroy all my other stuff and then go after Barrin to have something like this. God's Eye, Gate to the Reikai. Props to Shu. If you guys don't know, he's from Wooburg.net. Shu built a deck, I think that was pretty much like this, and this is a card that he recommended, and I really liked the idea of having a land that gave me a dude. So this is one of our only lands that we really feel okay with sacrificing versus normal. So it's just another cool card that fits really well in the deck. Cephalid Coliseum. There's a lot of looters in this deck. We're using them pretty regularly, so Threshold isn't a big deal with Cephalid Coliseum. The only real thing I wish I had was the old version of Cephalid Coliseum. I have a new version, and that's the only one I had, so we went with it for now, but I'll probably be changing it up in the future, just to, again, go along with the theme of having old boarded stuff in here to make it a little bit more retro. Nyx, or Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx, really great card in here when you play a lot of blue stuff. I do play some artifacts, but not a whole lot, so it's really not out of this deck's wheelhouse to get 10 or 12 devotion. I find that with Barrin and then, you know, some of the other creatures and permanents in here that we're able to generate a lot of power out of this. So it's really a nice card in here. Darksteel Citadel, again, part of that turning Trinket Mage into a Borderland Ranger package. Definitely great to have two options for that, because if we really need a land, we can go get Citadel. If we really need a blue, we can go get Seat, etc. So one of the big themes in this deck that's really kind of weird, but it's not, I guess it's not necessarily a theme, it's just kind of a card type affinity that I went for, is having Jace and Jace things. One of the things that my group isn't really too fond of Jace, even though he's, you know, according to market research data, he's the most popular Planeswalker. And I thought it would be funny if I had a bunch of Jace and Jace things in here to sacrifice to Barrin Master Wizard. So I started playing this stuff, and it actually kind of helped me with design a little bit, and Jace's Phantasm is definitely one of the cool things about this. I either have a 5/5 for 1, or I have a 1-drop that I can later on then play Barrin and then use it as something to sacrifice to later. I have no problems with using this, but this functionality and design is what really makes this a very powerful card in the deck. And you know, just being able to have a threat that costs something cheap later on in the game is really, really nice. Jace's Mindseeker. So again, you're seeing all the Jace things right off the bat. I thought I'd just go ahead and get them over with. This is a card that I don't feel bad about pitching to a Merfolk Looter or a Thought Courier or something like that. It's something that I'll play if I need a 6-drop and I need a spell. But again, it caters nicely to that idea that, you know, I'm not playing that many spells in the deck, so if I can help facilitate milling and disrupting an opponent while also, you know, getting something free out of it, that's really, really nice. One of the cool things about this card is that it flies, and it's a fish illusion, which is really weird to me. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But with some of the cards like this, you can actually... This is probably something I'm going to sacrifice more than try to recast over and over, but I can recast it. So having those flexible options with multiple creatures out really is what the Barrin deck is all about. Jace's Ingenuity. So this is one of the few non-creature spells that you're going to see in the deck. You know, I feel like it was just a no-brainer here, but I do actually need draw power. So it really helped, again, in that kind of necessity in design. By just making a joke out of something, I was able to create a serious need and fill that, and that's kind of my style. So I really like that. So here are our Planeswalkers. We've got Jace B, just, you know, again, really nice card. Jace the Living Guildpact. It's really not very good in here in terms of functional and design, but again, it helps us get threshold. It helps us get a little bit of card advantage, and if we can get the ultimate off, which I have a couple of times. It can actually set our opponents back pretty far. Architect of Thought. This is, again, because people underrate my Jace Planeswalkers, I've actually been able to get these off a couple of times. Because I've been ahead in the game at certain points, or I'm able to disrupt my opponents with Barrin. You know, it's not out of the wheelhouse to be able to use these ultimate abilities and these limit breaking abilities. Jace Architect of Thought. I've actually done it. I don't remember if it won me the game or not, but it got me pretty far ahead, being able to go get stuff from other people's libraries. I do play a lot of multiplayer, usually 3 to 4 people in a game, including myself, so this was a really nice little option because of that. Jace Memory Adept. So I haven't talked about how this deck wins. Consistently, it doesn't have one particular way to win. I've won with regular damage. I've won with milling, which is what Jace Memory Adept really helps us to do. Along with a couple of other cards in the deck. Because we can draw out the game to be a pretty long game, it's much more of an active management style game. So you're always looking for the right play at the right time. And I think that that's something that a lot of decks don't do. You know, when you go and you sit down and you start designing a deck in the shop, you know, you are looking at it and you're brewing it and you're like, well, okay, this is the way that I have to win. This is the way, you know, this is another way I can win. This is blah, blah, blah. Well, with this deck, it's a bunch of cards, and then you have to try to put it together in the game. And I think that that's one of the really cool things that makes this deck really fun for me to play. And Jace Memory Adept is one of the big ways that I didn't realize I was going to be able to win with milling. But because of Jace Memory Adept's power, his 0 ability, I've actually been able to do a lot of damage with it. And I really have found a lot of success with it. It's been fun. Tezzeret the Seeker. Again, this is just another way. We've got a couple of powerful artifacts in here. Mostly he's just here for the Planeswalker theme. And this is, again, another reason I normally power up Tezzeret the Seeker. Normally just give him all kinds of cool stuff to go get. In this deck, there's a couple of cool things to go get, but, you know, this is a card that I don't mind pitching. It's probably my only tutor effect for artifacts other than Trinket Mage. So, you know, if I've already got enough Trinket Mage stuff out, then I don't feel bad pitching him. But I really do like Tezzeret the Seeker. He's one of my favorite Planeswalkers. Tamiyo is my favorite, probably. And in this deck, there's really no reason to say that she isn't. I really, you know, most of the time, if I can get her early off, I can set an opponent so far back. In 1v1, it's really nuts in terms of what I can do. And with Barrin's ability in conjunction, you can really just do a whole lot of stuff that your opponents will probably just scoop and concede to. She just sets some people back so far. Teferi, I've had mixed results with him. You know, the card advantage is nice. It's a lot better than our Jace that, you know, puts stuff in the graveyard, the Living Guildpact. The -1 is really nice. I don't mind this card at all. I do have plenty of artifacts and stuff that can help me make sure that I'm kind of like not paying for Teferi or reducing the cost. The -10 ability, pretty much irrelevant. I don't expect to limit break a Teferi ever, but if I do, you guys have seen all my Planeswalkers, so, you know, I can in fact use them. Geralf's Mind Crusher. So one of the big cool things about this deck is that Undying and Persist creatures are just the bomb. And Geralf's Mind Crusher is something that can be used with Jace Memory Adept in conjunction in order to assemble a way to diminish our opponent's card or affinity to draw the card that they need to win the game. And later on in the game, these cards become very deadly. And it's really hard to deal with a Geralf's Mind Crusher on the board without Wraths, without, you know, even with spot removal, because I can respond. And usually I'll respond multiple times if I have to in order for an opponent to, if opponent's trying to point removal at it. So it's just a really cool card. And I've really enjoyed it in here. And I think it's one of the all-stars of the deck. Nevermaker. This is a really cool card because Evoke allows us, we can actually respond to Evoke, to the Evoke trigger. We can put the Enter the Battlefield ability on the stack, and before it's sacrificed, we can re-sacrifice it to Barrin to bounce something else. So, you know, there's a lot more stuff going on, and it can be pretty intricate in terms of the rules, but it's actually a really powerful effect. And if you have the 6 mana to do that, then it's great. Sometimes that's, you know, this is how we generate multiple 2-for-1s. If not, we can hard cast it, and no big deal. Chasm Skulker. So you've seen my Jace's Ingenuity. You've seen a little bit of the card draw mechanic with the cycling, etc. What's cool about this card is that the dies trigger is something that we can control. So you know, if we need that, or if we need to protect it and reset it, we can do that too. But I really did need a threat that could scale to the game nicely, and you know, that could actually get some tokens out on the battlefield. I really like this card a lot. I've liked it since it was released, and I finally got a chance to play it. When I do play it in playtesting and stuff, you know, it can get about 5 or 6 tokens on there, 5 or 6 tokens on the battlefield. So it can get pretty big before people decide to start removing it. You know, that's basically what I found. It's just a fun card to have. Pilgrim's Eye. This is a card that's kind of started out being played as a joke because everybody loves Solemn Simulacrum in my group, and he's kind of half of a Solemn Simulacrum, and the flying really helps out too. But in this deck, this is again something I don't have a problem sacrificing to Barrin. It's also something that I can replay if I need to, and it actually chump blocks flyers, which is another nice little thing. So this is not a card that's too shabby, I'd say. Stormbound Geist, another huge beatdown. So Stormbound Geist is a flyer, which is really powerful. Even though it's not very big, we can control that. And using the Undying ability is just really, really powerful in this deck. Barrin loves Stormbound Geist and all the Undying and persist creatures in this deck. He's, we can only block creatures with flying, but that's totally fine. A lot of times that's what we really need anyway. So just a really nice little creature all around and been a really good addition to our deck. So Sower of Temptation is kind of where our deck gets a little bit busted. Being able to gain control of our opponent's stuff and then sack that to bounce Sower of Temptation is a really great removal strategy. The Barrin deck really needed some power. Sower of Temptation is just something that I really like. And I guess not a lot of people play it, or it gets played in too competitive metagames. I don't really know. Either way, what I do know is that Barrin really helps Sower of Temptation get powered up quite a bit, even more so than it already is. Clever Impersonator. There's a lot of really cool busted things that can happen with Clever Impersonator. We'll kind of talk about them, but copying our own Planeswalkers isn't too bad. A lot of times if people are starting to attack them, we can just copy them and reset them. Also, a really good thing is that we play so many permanents that it's not only good for us, but it's good against our opponents because we don't know what they have. And this is another card that just scales really nice to the game overall. Aether Snipe. So again, we have that cool evoke trigger cost thing like we do with Nevermaker. A lot of times these evoke things we just want to be hard casting, but if we get pretty desperate, we can pre-evoke the evoke creatures. So pretty cool. I talked about Solemn. It's my favorite card in Magic, and it's just a really cool little card here. I don't know how many times I've bounced or sacrificed something else to bounce it to recast it. I do it quite a bit, and I cast at least 2 to 3 times a game, probably if I draw into it. It's just a really nice card, and if all else fails, I can sacrifice it at some point to draw a card. So it just generates a lot of advantage. Murder of Crows. This is a new one. I haven't actually drawn into it yet, but when I do, I'll let you guys know, because it seems like a really fun card. I really like the idea of this card. I like the artwork. Murder of Crows. It just feels like such a nice little Innistrad card design, and I also like the looter effect. So this is a really cool card that's added to the design. I need another flyer as well. So Scourge of Fleets. So I just got this card. I got the promo version anyway in the mail. Really, really, really nice artwork on this. I had the older version in here before that. It's so powerful. Just again, the ability to bounce other people's stuff. We play a lot of islands, so this caters really nicely to my sensibilities. I really love this cycle of stuff where X equaled the number of basic lands that they controlled. I'm a big fan of monocolored decks, and this just reaffirmed that power and relationship that I have with them. So really love Scourge of Fleets. Being able to recur this is powerful. Chancellor of the Spires. This is a card that's won me a couple of games in other decks. I've been able to create infinite turn loops with other people's time stretches with this. But long story short, in here, it's probably one of my favorite cards because it doesn't exile the card from an opponent's graveyard, whereas Diluvian Primordial, I believe, does. And I've actually cut Diluvian Primordial in favor of this card, not only because of that, but because it's just bigger in terms of that toughness. Having a 5/7, and again, being able to recur this to get Diabolic Tutors and reanimates and stuff like that out of other people's graveyards has been really cool. And again, it's another one of those angles of interaction that this deck has that other decks might not. And because we have that instant and sorcery deficiency in blue, this is another way that we can get back at and compensate for that kind of shortcoming. So Bonded Fetch, again, we have a Merfolk looter theme. Bonded Fetch is one of my favorites. I think it's the only card short of Suspend in blue that does have haste innately printed on the card, and it's got a really beautiful Future Sight border. I really just like this card overall, and it's another thing that we don't feel bad about sacrificing to Barrin Master Wizard in order to activate that ability. Later on in the game, it's kind of a dead draw, but at least it allows us to sift a card out of our hand. So Glenalendur Archmage, I talked about how it defies my no counterspell rule. The big reason it's here is because it has Persist. And having Persist on this creature is pretty busted. Generally, I don't mind people playing creatures, and in this deck, that's pretty okay. I mean, we have plenty of ways to deal with that. So this helps us get everything else, which can be a problem. And I've never used it to be like uber busted, but I can effectively lock somebody out of playing non-creature spells if I wanted to. Most of the time, she gets, I use her quite a bit, so it's really not a big deal. I'll use her to chump block. Sometimes it's the power and the responsibility dynamic. You can break the game, though, with this kind of card in this deck. Muldrifter. So again, we have that cool evoke sacrifice to Barrin interaction. Most of the time I'm hard casting Muldrifter in this deck, though, and that's because I want to be playing it again and multiple times. Again, it's another thing that I can sacrifice to do all this stuff, and I don't have any problems with it, and it draws me a bunch of cards. Speaking of drawing a bunch of cards, River Kelpie is the all-star of the deck. One of the most busted things I've done so far with River Kelpie is copy Clever Impersonator and copy River Kelpie with Clever Impersonator, sacrificing Clever Impersonator as a copy, and then letting it re-enter the battlefield as a copy of River Kelpie. You can effectively draw 2 cards off of that, and it's just so powerful. It's one of the cards that you reset and reset, and it just creates an awesome board state where you are drawing cards and you are doing exactly what you need to try to find the cards you need to win the game. Love River Kelpie. Merfolk Looter. We talked about how there's a little bit of a card type inclusion of this. A little bit of redundancy here. And Thought Courier. Reef Worm. So before C14 got spoiled is when I started building this deck. When Reef Worm got spoiled in the C14 previews, I was like, wow, I have been validated. It's just such a fantastic card in here. We're almost always going to get that 9/9 blue Kraken because we can sacrifice Reef Worm whenever we want. So if you don't have a reason to play Reef Worm in a deck already, this is the deck you want to be playing it in. Trinket Mage. We've talked a lot about the Trinket Mage package. We're about to see our artifacts here pretty soon, so you'll see a little bit more of why I'm playing Trinket Mage. Royal Elemental. It's a foil version. Again, it helps us with that cool kind of take control and sack to bounce ability that we have. Mostly the reason I'm playing this Royal Elemental is because I have a foil copy of it. It looked beautiful, and I just felt like it shouldn't be sitting in a binder. So this is a card that you could probably switch out if you think that I have too much control-y, gain control stuff in here, but it's cool. Pearl Lake Ancient. So before it became a powerhouse in Standard as part of the control builds, I was playing this card, and it's just been really, really, really cool. I've had a lot of fun experience with it. I leave a lot of mana up untapped because when my opponents want to attack me, that's when you respond with Barrin. So at the end of somebody's turn, if I've effectively rattlesnaked them, this is a card I can have in my hand and go, well, here's a big thing. It was one of the original big threats in the deck, other than Geralf's Mind Crusher. And it's one of the better ways that I have to win. The Prowse Trigger surprisingly gets off more than I thought. I've actually won the game because of the Prowse Trigger, and managing that was really nice. So again, the Return 3 Lands Clause, also a good thing. I've effectively, I haven't used it yet, but it's just another way to make sure that we have a recurrable threat. Master of Predicaments. So this card has been in here since the beginning of the deck build. One of the reasons is that most of the cards sit on that 4 to 5 converted mana cost line, and so being able to get free stuff off of my opponents is really nice. I've had a lot of fun with it. Again, this is one of the cards that I think is a fun inhibitor versus some of the cards that we just talked about with River Kelpie and things like that, where they've been a little bit more on the side of kind of breaking the game. This is a card that brings us back down to that level of fun. Jace's Archivist. Again, another card. I should have put it in the Jace's part. Whatever. This is another Jace's thing that caters to that milling strategy win. I talked about it a little bit. And again, it's a really nice way to refill our hand if we have nothing. And because we are trying to play permanents down on the field so much, it caters to our sensibilities in this deck where we're trying to outdraw our opponents and gain some advantage. Relentless Scobs. This is a new addition to the deck, but it's another Undying card, and I didn't put it in here before because I was worried about not having creatures in my graveyard to help the additional casting cost off. But I realized because of my looter effects and because there's not a lot of creatures that a lot of creatures will die, that Relentless Scobs casting this won't be a problem, and that mid-rangey dudes aren't so bad in this deck. So because of those reasons, Relentless Scobs got to come back in and join the team. Deal Broker, one of my new favorite cards. It slots into basically every deck, and it's a Merfolk looter. So if you ignore all this nonsense here and you look down here at tap, draw a card, discard a card, you'll see why I'm playing it. Gilded Drake is probably the most busted card in the deck. For 3 colorless and 1 blue, we can play Gilded Drake, exchange control of it with an opponent's creature, sack their thing, get our Gilded Drake back, and play again. It's just one of the most powerful cards in the deck if somebody doesn't do anything about it. And, you pretty much are forced to at a certain point in the game. So, Gilded Drake, just another way to power that card up. Master of Waves, we play it for the same reason we're playing Nykthos. Got a lot of power with Devotion, etc. And it's just been a great card overall. We can also clone it with Clever Impersonator, which is our only copy effect, and just really go to work with that too. Augury Owl. So I needed some low curve stuff in the deck to help me get some card advantage, to help me have some chump blockers, and what better one than Augury Owl? This is a card that I don't think a lot of people play in Commander because they think, oh, it's bad, but again, having the flexibility of being able to replay it if we need to, and we're drawing short on land or whatever. It's just another little management card that allows us to get better at the game. So our Trinket Mage package / artifact package is here. Got an Everflowing Chalice, really nice card. Got a cool foil Springleaf Drum. This is a card that's really underrated in here. A lot of times I found that having odd mana costs really sucked in this deck. If you've got odd mana costs and you've got a lot of creatures out, you can still only do as much as your mana allows you. Well, with Springleaf Drum, it's a really nice down payment early on in the game. And because we're going to have a lot of creatures out, and probably most of them will be untapped, we can, or at least Barrin will be untapped, we can use that to kind of surprise our opponents and get a little bit of an extra a bounce effect out of it. Wayfarer's Bauble, just some more card, land getting flexibility. Soul Ring, Aether Spellbomb. Again, we're helping with that odd mana cost flexibility. The blue mana really allows us to return a creature. We can also cycle a card too. Mindstone, again, some more ability with that. Vidalcan Shackles, again catering to that Gilded Drake, Sower of Temptation, Royal Elemental part of the deck. Armillary Sphere, more card advantage. Ghostly Flicker, some more ETB effects. One of the cool things that I've done with this is responded to evoke costs. Again, just being able to kind of pseudo break the game, I guess, so to speak, and get multiple effects is really cool. Reality Shift, new removal. Haven't played it yet, but it seems super sweet. And I got the Ugin's Fate one, so I really, really wanted to put that in the deck and kind of start pimping it out. Boomerang, again, just having a couple of little instants and sorceries in here that will help disrupt our opponents. Helps them to keep guessing, because a lot of times they'll get in the frame of mind where they'll just think I have a bunch of stuff in my hand that's I can only play on my turn. Well, hiding a few of these cards into my hand will really help trick them out. And trip them up. Polymorphous Jest, along with nope, not there yet. Polymorphous Jest, along with Aether Spouts, which we'll talk about in a little bit, really help us to again do that same kind of thing that I was talking about with Boomerang. One of the cool tricks is that because we have so many creatures out, this actually becomes effectively a lot more removal than people think. Perilous Research, just playing into that Barrin sensibility. If we don't have Barrin out and we can play something really lame early on in the game that we need to draw into more cards that will hopefully be better, this is just another card that does the Barrin thing and generates advantage. Deep Analysis, nice little looter effect. I don't mind pitching this card early on in the game, and then just using it later to pay 3 life and draw a couple cards. Aether Spouts. So we talked about Polymorphous Jest a little bit. Aether Spouts is really along the same line. It's just a great card to have, and it suckers people in a lot more than I thought it would. And that's probably because they don't think that I have stuff in my hand. So really nice little card. I don't play Aetherize, I just play those two. I just felt like that was fine. I didn't need more than that. Increasing Confusion, probably a card that I pitch a lot of times, but I did get a nice, really beautiful foil copy of this, and I couldn't resist it. Plus, I also talked about our milling sensibilities, and after I realized that I can mill people in a game, then I decided that Increasing Confusion should probably come in here. Hour of Need, really new removal, really weird removal, but I thought about it like this. I really wanted to have some creatures and some power in here that ended the game. So I can do this to my own creatures if I want. The Strive ability allows me to flex it a little bit more. It gives me an exile effect in blue, which is nice. Also, it gives them a token versus having a permanent creature. So if I'm able to bounce the token, then I'm permanently getting rid of something. So there's a lot of things going on here, and it's really cool that I'm able to create a way to not only win the game, but also to disrupt my opponents and, you know, kind of in 2 or 3 more cards, get rid of their thing. So I didn't think it was that bad. See Beyond, I really like this card a lot. I don't think it gets played enough. I mean, I don't know if other people play it at all. I haven't seen it in any other blue decks. But this is just another card that allows me to not pitch things to my graveyard, which is pretty typical of this deck, and allows me to get it back. So See Beyond, really nice. Hatching Plans, just incredible value with Barrin. A turn 2 Hatching Plans and a turn 3 Barrin, or turn 3 or turn 4 Barrin, ensures me a lot of stability, and I really just love to see Hatching Plans all the time because it's something that I can definitely sack to Barrin and get a lot of value out of. Our last card is Day of the Dragons. I finally got to cast this card recently, and it was a bomb. So it comes into play. We put 5 exile our creatures and put that many 5/5 red dragons with flying into play. And when it leaves play, we sacrifice our dragons, and then we put those cards into play under our control. So it's essentially a blink effect, which I imagine would be really good with something like Brago, King Eternal. But in this deck, it's pretty similar. We're just using it as a way to either get some threats, or if we can do it without having Barrin on the field, great, because then we can cast Day of the Dragons, then we can cast Barrin, and then we have the flexibility of saying, hey, let's go ahead and end that game. So that's it, and that is the deck. Barrin and I would like to thank you guys for watching today's installment of CMDR Decks. As always, please favorite and subscribe.